daughter that you wanted. I will be. I will be. I will be.
Smith, ITV News, Westminster.
Mr Byers had been one of Tony Blair's most trusted ministers, but as we've heard, it all started to go wrong with the notorious September the 11th email affair, followed by a number of other rows and accusations that he had lied to Parliament. All the while, there were serious problems with the transport system, and earlier this month, another disaster on the railways. John Draper looks at what led to his downfall.
It had all started out so well for Stephen Byers. A key player in Tony Blair's inner circle, he got his reward when he was appointed Junior Education Minister after the first Labour landslide. On the way up, it said that the image makers told him he just didn't look sufficiently New Labour, so he lost the moustache. Now he's lost his job. He rose to become Trade Secretary and last year Transport Secretary. But it all started going wrong when his special advisor, Joe Moore, infamously suggested that September the 11th was a good time to release bad news because it wouldn't be noticed. He refused to sack her. Even her apology didn't help. But his loyalty to Ms. Moore damaged him politically. In the end, she did resign amid allegations that unfavourable railway statistics might be released around the time of Princess Margaret's funeral. That also led eventually to another top official, Martin Sixsmith, going. It looked like civil war in the Department of Transport, and Mr. Byers got into even deeper water when he was asked in an ITV interview if he played a part in Mr. Sixsmith's resignation. This is what he said.
No, these are personnel issues between Martin Sixsmith and the department, and they're dealt with by Sir Richard Mottram as his employer.
And you had no conversation about that with Sir Richard Mottram?
No, these are personnel matters,
no conversation
and I do not get involved.
But later at the House of Commons, he had to apologise for saying that because he had been involved.
If my answers on the programme gave the impression that I did not put forward a view or make clear my views to others inside and outside the department, that is obviously something I regret.
He survived, but the Tories knew it was just a matter of time.
In the House.
Just what does it take for this Secretary of State to go?
What it took was a whole string of misfortunes. Those who didn't care about the rowing within the department certainly did care about the state of public transport, the 10-year plan, the collapse of rail track. For many, it was inevitable that the rising star of New Labour would have to go. John Draper, ITV News.
Well, to our political editor, John Sargent, now in Downing Street. John, if he was going to go, why on earth didn't it happen earlier?
Well, it is a surprising point about government, really. There are all sorts of complicated reasons why the Prime Minister decided to hold on to a Cabinet Minister who clearly had lost enormous credibility. And I suspect that up and down the country, people will be saying, well, why on earth didn't he go earlier? Surely it was obvious. One of the reasons was that Tony Blair didn't want to be like John Major, who was often forced by the media and by the opposition to drop an unpopular Cabinet Minister. There's also a feeling, I think, in government that with their big majority, they can ignore the feelings of the opposition, they can ignore the press and say, we've got the votes, why don't we carry on? There was also a strong feeling on the Labour benches that they liked Stephen Byers and they wanted him to continue. So all those factors added up to look in the minds of the public, I'm sure, quite odd. Because there were moments when, for people like me who followed Westminster politics for 20 years, when he stood up and said, I did not mislead Parliament, when he himself had said that Martin Sixsmith had resigned and made a resignation statement on that basis, and then was saying he hadn't resigned, it seemed to be stretching the use of the English language to say that he did not mislead the House of Commons.
So, John, how much damage does this do to the Prime Minister?
It does now, as it's turned out, do quite a lot of damage to the Prime Minister because, of course, throughout all this, people could say if Mr. Blair wants to hold on to him, he can hold on to him. So the decision was very much in the Prime Minister's court, even though it was Mr. Byers himself who, we're told, decided over last weekend that he would resign, that he couldn't carry on, that he was becoming too much of a story, that he was embarrassing the government. But of course it was always up to the Prime Minister, as it is now, to say, please, please stay on. He should have got rid of him earlier.
John Sargent, thank you.
Well, to other news now, and a survey of hospitals has found that many patients are having to wait an unacceptably long time in casualty departments. The government wants people to be dealt with within 4 hours. But spot checks discovered one elderly woman who'd been in casualty for nearly 4 days. The hospital said there was nothing wrong with that because she was being cared for properly. Lawrence McGinty reports.
This is the hospital in Aintree, where, according to today's survey, one elderly woman had to wait 95 hours in A&E after falling and hurting her hip. But the survey that revealed her case has come under intense fire. The hospital says she was waiting in comfort and with proper medical supervision.
We believe they shot themselves in the foot on this occasion. This is a slap in the face to doctors and nurses in this hospital who work so hard to make sure patients are treated quickly. The number of telephone calls I've had this morning from people who've been in this ward and said it's a perfectly satisfactory ward to be in and they have no complaints about their treatment whatsoever.
The 90-year-old woman patient waited here in this observation ward in a proper bed. Patients on the ward today told ITV News waiting here was no problem.
Over the last 5 years I've been in house hospital and this is complete luxury.
But the authors of today's survey say observation wards in other hospitals aren't like this. They're little more than a trolley in a corridor.
People are waiting longer than they should, and it's going to take an awful lot of work and a lot of investment, which partly, to be fair, is already being put in for the government to meet its own target.
The government's target is that by the year 2004, no one should be waiting in an A&E department for more than 4 hours. The Department of Health says there has been progress towards that target, but today's survey shows there's still a very long way to go. Lawrence McGinty, ITV News at the Department of Health.
The continuing problem of hospital waiting times.
There's more still to come on the ITV Evening News, including £13.5 billion loss for Britain's biggest mobile phone company.
Better news from Japan on Beckham's match fitness.
And the Queen's words of praise for Scotland's Parliament.
All that and more when we come back.
Luxury motoring redefined. Live the difference. The new Renault Velsatis.
Now when you buy prescription glasses at Vision Express, you also get prescription sunglasses, absolutely free. Vision Express, opticians.
You can't wrap up against allergies, but one new Pyretes tablet could protect you all day. New Pyretes, one-a-day protection from the makers of Piriton.
Welcome back to the ITV Evening News.
Tonight's headlines are dominated by the resignation of the Transport Secretary, Stephen Byers. He told reporters this afternoon that he knew he'd made mistakes.
He said he had decided to go because he was damaging the government. A short time ago, a grim-faced Mr. Byers left King's Cross station on his way back to his constituency.
Now, the mobile phone company Vodafone has reported Britain's biggest ever corporate loss, a staggering £13.5 billion. But the company's share price actually rose after the news because analysts had been expecting the figures to be even worse. And Vodafone bosses said the business was still in good shape.
We're generating cash, we're making cash. It's accounting entries that have no intrinsic value, and that's why it's important that our shareholders are not misled by that which we have to do to conform with the reporting standards. And I'm sure most of them will look through and be reassured.
Well, Vodafone bosses may be putting a positive spin on the company's results, but exactly how did it manage to run up such huge losses in the first place? Over to our business editor, Caroline Kerr, in the computer graphics studio.
Although Vodafone's results represent the biggest ever loss in British corporate history, you may be surprised to hear that they are much better than the city had been expecting. In all, the company paid out £19.7 billion, money to write off losses from poor-performing investments and for other charges. But Vodafone did achieve higher than expected pre-tax profits of £6.2 billion, up a staggering 54% on the previous year. That left them with a final figure of £13.5 billion in the red. But what is contributing to Vodafone's disappointing performance? Well, most of us now have a mobile phone, which means fewer new customers are signing up, and the market is reaching saturation point. Most analysts agree that at £6 billion, the company overpaid for its license to operate the next generation of so-called 3G mobile services, which are still in development. And the whole telecom sector has been suffering from a loss of confidence amongst investors. But what will today's figures mean for mobile phone customers? Well, we may have to pay higher call charges. All the phone companies will be tempting us now with more text message services like football scores and horoscopes, and expect to be bombarded with offers of new services like emailing, which will make use of new telephone technology.
Caroline Kerr. Now, the Foreign Secretary Jack Straw had talks with Pakistan's President General Musharraf today as he began meetings aimed at calming the crisis over Kashmir. He said that the international community was looking for proof that Pakistan had stopped helping Islamic militants who've attacked Indian targets. He's now moved on to India for further talks.
Russia and NATO, enemies for so many years during the Cold War, signed an historic deal today to work together on terrorism and arms control. The agreement was signed in Rome by 20 countries. President Putin said the significance of the meeting was hard to overestimate. Our senior news correspondent Bill Neely reports from Rome.
There's rarely been an international summit with so much kissing and hugging. Even Tony Blair was in on the act, as NATO and Russia, old enemies, embrace a new partnership. For 4 decades, NATO plotted to attack Russia. Now its leader has been given a seat at NATO's table as a junior partner.
Is that agreed? Thank you very much. He is the chairman.
A seat and a say in some decisions for Russia, but not a veto. NATO lost an enemy when Russia's Soviet empire collapsed. Now they both have a new one.
The attacks of September the 11th made clear that the new dangers of our age threaten all nations, including Russia.
And from Tony Blair, a warning to the new club about its new enemy.
We have the terrorists on the run in Afghanistan, but it is still out there as a real and potent threat. Weapons of mass destruction are as potent a threat also as international terrorism.
And there's the rub. Russia is an old friend of Iraq and is selling weapons and nuclear reactors to Iran. So George Bush and his new Russian friend have plenty to chew on. So they signed up, Russia edging ever closer to the West. It was all a grand show. It will need to be more than that. Mr. Blair leaving first and fast to see to problems at home. Like Rome, this new organisation won't be built in a day, and it'll be tested soon enough in crisis and perhaps in war. After September the 11th, America wants action, not a talking shop. NATO and its new club is on notice to deliver. Bill Neely, ITV News, Pratica di Mare, near Rome.
There was good news from the England camp today when Sven-Göran Eriksson said he thought David Beckham will be able to play in England's first World Cup game on Sunday. Beckham was back training with the full England squad for the first time today, and he looked pleased to be there. Mark Austin is with the squad in Japan.
For the first time in 7 weeks, the smile is back on the face of England's captain. And no wonder. Finally, he's winning a battle against injury, which just days ago it seemed he was destined to lose. It is news that has lifted the gloom here. He's back training with the squad, back having fun, albeit painful fun, and most importantly, back in the World Cup reckoning. These are the pictures the England camp want the football world to see. But it was at this make-or-break session behind closed doors earlier where Beckham's World Cup fate was actually decided. Bare-chested in the midday sun, he was taking his trademark free kicks and corners under the watchful eye of England's medical staff. It was a spectacle that soon drew a crowd on a nearby hillside. And so comfortably did Beckham come through the session that coach Sven-Göran Eriksson is confident that he can risk him against Sweden on Sunday.
We think so, yes. He did a session this morning and he did everything. Free kicks, some corners, a lot of shooting, a lot of running.
So will he start against Sweden?
If things goes as we think, yes, he will start.
It was the first time Eriksson had all 23 of his players together for training since they've been in the Far East. But there is still a question mark over Kieran Dyer, who is still not fully recovered from his knee injury. But that is a detail that will be lost on Beckham's oldest fan in Japan. She is 92, she was at the training ground today, and like millions of people in England, has something to celebrate tonight. So this is a major boost for England. With 5 days to go, this is a team looking forward to the World Cup with renewed hope. Mark Austin, ITV News, Awaji Island, Japan.
The Queen addressed the Scottish Parliament for the first time today as part of her Jubilee tour of the country. She praised the Parliament's achievements and said she valued the distinctive contribution Scotland had made in strengthening the United Kingdom. Our Scotland correspondent Martin Geisler reports.
There was a mixed start to this, the penultimate day of the Jubilee tour in Scotland. The Queen clearly pleased to meet the 1,000 school children who turned out to greet her in Aberdeen. But then, the perils of the park. Something she didn't like attached itself to the sole of the royal shoe.
Get us back, come on.
The main business of the day was at the city's university, home this week to the Scottish Parliament. Scotland's politicians have been the target of criticism lately, people here questioning the quality of their work. But the Queen said a new political culture would inevitably take time.
What cannot be denied is the volume of work which has been completed in the past 3 years, and the spirit of participation which has been encouraged along the way.
The Queen is the first reigning monarch to address the Scottish Parliament in session. History having been made, the relentless schedule continues. Next stop, Dundee. There she was welcomed by more school children as she opened a £5 million dance centre. This leg of the tour has been exhausting. Tomorrow, after 1 week and 1,000 miles, it ends in the Borders. Martin Geisler, ITV News, Aberdeen.
Now we're ending the programme with more on the story that's dominating the news this evening, the resignation of the Transport Secretary, Stephen Byers.
Mr Byers called an unscheduled news conference this afternoon to announce his decision. He said he regretted having to leave the government.
This has been a government I wanted to serve in, but now I know I must leave. I do so with many regrets and with much sadness, but I know with absolute certainty that it's the right thing to do for the Labour Party and, above all, for the government.
As Mr Byers left Downing Street tonight, his former spin doctor Joe Moore told ITV News it was very sad.
Well, for the final word this evening, we're going back to our political editor, John Sargent. John, what happens now?
Well, we get Mr Byers' replacement announced tomorrow. It's going to be a mini cabinet reshuffle, not very extensive, but it will be the last changes at this time of year. We often have a reshuffle in the summer, but this is going to be it. Now, the main names being mentioned are Charles Clarke, the Labour Party chairman, and John Reid, the Northern Ireland secretary, but lots of other names being mentioned. What the Prime Minister has to bear in mind is that there has been a loss of confidence in the government, a loss of trust. Now, that is a difficult thing to replace. So what happens now, just not only with Mr Byers' replacement, but across the whole field of government activity, they're going to have to be much more careful about not getting into one of these arguments that Mr Byers endlessly got into about who said what and who do you believe. Because in the end what happens is it's not just an argument going on at Westminster, it's an argument which everyone sees across the country and they draw conclusions. And if the government give the impression that they're not to be trusted, that's very damaging indeed.
John Sargent in Westminster, thank you very much indeed.
And that's it from us. Trevor MacDonald will be here later with all the latest developments on Stephen Byers' resignation with the ITV News at 10.
And we'll be back with the evening news at the usual time tomorrow. Until then, have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Controlling energy for homes and business.
Good evening now. Over the next few days, remaining very unsettled indeed, breezy, a real mixture of sunshine and showers. Tonight, a breezy night ahead, fairly blustery showers as well. Quite persistent rain, in fact, across Northern Ireland, northwest England and western Scotland. Although it isn't going to be a chilly night tonight, we're looking at lows of maybe 7 or 8 Celsius, although winds really increasing, near touching gale force in the far southwest. So tomorrow, if we start off in the south, most places starting off on a bright note. Some areas remaining dry, especially the east and along the south coast, although showers will start to develop through the day, some of which could be fairly heavy. Now, if we trek further north, certainly in the way of cloud, especially in the west, showery rain turning quite heavy over the hills. The best of the sunshine really across eastern Scotland and the northeast of England, but I don't think any of us really can rule out the odd risk of a shower at some point tomorrow. Temperatures, well, we got a very pleasant 18 up in the northwest of Scotland today. Tomorrow a lot cooler, in fact at best 17, that's 63, and that's right down in towards the south. So looking ahead then towards Thursday, a similar situation really, sunshine in amongst some showers, maybe even a rumble of thunder, a fairly brisk southwesterly wind as well, and some of those showers could be very heavy indeed, especially the further north you are. We're looking at highs of maybe 15 up to around 18 Celsius. So there's a reminder of what's coming in our direction tomorrow. Plenty of cloud in the west, remaining very unsettled, and indeed very, very windy as well. Now don't forget, if you do fancy any more information, you can always check out the website itv.com/weather. I'll see you later on.
Powergen, controlling energy for homes and business.
It wasn't just beatings and punchings. They used to electrocute me with electric wires. I couldn't go to the hospital and prove that this was going on because he wouldn't let me out.
For the real victims, there are no awards. Domestic violence, this week, GMTV.
So, Mr. Conley, what have you got?
Run the trailer.
With a hey, Daddy, no!
You could even hypnotise stupid people.
Bit of music, few jokes, some chat.
A brand new series of The Brian Conley Show, Saturday at 9, ITV1. Well, I think that said it all.
Guaranteed next morning delivery from £3.60. Special delivery from Royal Mail.
To celebrate the Jubilee, the Lotto people are going to have the normal draw, plus a bonus golden draw where you can win 10 million quid. So you can live like a king. Some change for this, please. Mind you don't trip over that gold bar on the way out, Mavis. You can even make your own coins. The £10 million golden Jubilee draw. Don't live a little, live a Lotto.
You're adorable, sweet as can be. You're adorable, a dream girl to me. You're all that I hope.
Hi. Hi. Oh, can we strike them? Yeah, sure.
New Impulse Moisturising Body Spray. Make your skin strokeable.
From the Avengers to Emmerdale, he's a dodgy crook from the Dales.
Eric Pollard.
He's Chris Chattel.
Do I make myself clear?
And this is his story.
What do you say to that?
Carol Vorderman, with the help of some very special guests, celebrate the life of a brilliant actor. Soapstar Lives, tonight at 8, ITV1.
There's 50 minutes of the finest chat on ITV2 now. Your host, as always, David Letterman. Here, though, in Emmerdale, we'll leave the smooth talking up to Sid.
The vacuum packed up?
No, just ran over a drawing pin. It's out now.
Oh, good. Now, these things shouldn't go wrong when they're practically brand new.
I don't know, Mr. Turner. This one gets pretty heavy use.
Really? Well, we're hardly the size of the Dorchester here, are we?
Yeah, but even so, I don't really have enough time to get round as it is, do I, the hours I do?
Oh, we're at that again, are we?
Oh, it'd only mean another 2 or 3 hours a week. It'd make all the difference. I could keep on top of the dust and the polishing and that.
You know, you really should be able to manage everything in the time that you've got.